Okay, should have turned it on earlier, but we've got the main part. Go ahead,
Sweet.
Gary. With all the confusion, we're going to do this anyway.
Well, yeah, the advent of Zoom has presented a lot of opportunities and sometimes challenges. Today we had a little technical challenge, and I think we're going to be able to resolve it. What we're going to do is when I present content, I like to present something that's pre-recorded because I can control that a little more and give people a little better experience.
It's very.
Uh, is there
Oh,
reverb?
I'm going to ask everybody to go on mute, please.
Yes.
Can you just mute them?
If I mute everybody, that means I'm also muting Gary,
Oh,
and I
okay.
don't want to do that.
Okay.
Um, in any case, the being able to record a demonstration gives me options that I can't do live. So one of those options is being able to narrate over content and describe my thought process a little more. And that's exactly what I'm going to do tonight. But you'll see a video playing, but you're going to hear me speaking live. And I'll be able to describe what I'm doing with the brush. Also, part of the thought process that goes into doing watercolor painting. Can I ask, are people painting along tonight or are they simply watching?
Hard to know. If you are painting along, can you put your hand up? Okay, so we have some people that are and many that aren't.
Okay. All right. And it's 7:41, 8:41.
That's
All
all
right.
there is to see. Doreen, the black pattern's the only thing that's on right at the moment.
Yes. I haven't started the video yet. So I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. Tells me people are painting. What I actually prepared for tonight was a quick exercise in looking for patterns in nature, finding a pattern in an example of leaves over water, and finding a pattern in stones under the water. Are two examples that I pick up in preparation for the painting tonight. And so if you want to follow along, all I'm going to be using is one color. I'm going to be working on two small pieces of paper, and I'm building up the patterns with black and white. This is about a 20-minute exercise, but it really helps to springboard into the final painting that I'll present after that. So let's go ahead and start. All right. So you can see I've taped down a piece of paper to my board. I'll tell you quickly, I'm working at an angle here. My board is approximately 45 degrees in an angle, and that helps me with several things. It helps me to control the movement of the paint. It gives me a better view of my painting, and I'm able to work this way comfortably. It's not for everybody. Some people like to work flat. Absolutely fine. I'll be using for this exercise a mop brush. This is a Princeton Neptune that you see me in my hand. I'm going to be using this brush along with a small sablette uh, to paint these patterns. And since it's an exercise, since I like working with a single color, I'm just using black. Okay. Black is a great color for the watercolors to experiment with. The main reason is it looks black even in a diluted state. And because of that, you have to think much more about the consistency of the paint than how it looks. So you start to measure the paint by how it feels on your brush. And that's a very important step to make as a watercolor artist. What I'm going to be doing is creating a couple washes. Right now, I'm looking at the photograph you see in the upper right-hand side. This is the upper part of the image that we're building tonight. I'm looking at the leaves overhead primarily and trying to identify, first in my working thoughts, a pattern of light across the leaves. So I'm building up a tone very randomly using this large brush, the side of the brush, the tip of the brush, letting the colors kind of mix and merge. I'm not really directing the watercolor at this point. I'm just applying some color and confident that when I see it dried, I'll be able to extract the image of these leaves. And it's a skill as much as anything else to be able to respond to what's going on in your own painting, especially for the watercolorist, because things almost never end up as intended. There's always something that happens. There's always something, some gift. There's always something that you have to manage. And being able to do that without panicking is part of our skill set. So look at that. There's absolutely, it's, if you look, show that to anybody, they're not going to know what's going on. But in my mind's eye, I'm starting to see a slight pattern emerge from all of this activity. A deeper shadow on the right, a little more brightness on the left. That's all I need in this first layer. So as I pick up paint, you're not completely aware of it, but I'm really going for dark stuff in the palette. Left to right, there's a little movement of light. Top to bottom, there's a little movement of light. Very abstract. I'm very comfortable with this. Okay, so I'm just going to pause it here. So now what I'm doing is I'm shifting to the water portion of our image. If I advance this just a little bit. Come on. Okay. Hold on a second. This happens to me occasionally in my classes. My quick time. Oh, there it goes. Let's see. No. Yeah, this is what's happened is my quick time has frozen up. It's easy
Oh,
for
no.
me to re-engage. I just have to stop share and then turn off QuickTime and then reshare. Just give me a second to do that. It'll just take a moment.
No problem. We'll hang in there.
Yeah.
You can all
Okay.
view the little tiny picture of what Gary really looks like on the screen.
Yeah, that was some years ago, but I haven't changed that much.
No, not at all, right?
Let's see, share. Thanks. 1 second. Sorry for the technical issues. It happens sometimes. And the problem is after this, I have so many screens open. Okay. Almost there. Quick time. There it is. Okay. Now I'm going to share it with you again and we'll be underway.
Okay, let me.
Just want to move it the playhead to the point where we take a break.
Right now, I just see the little picture of you.
Yep.
So,
It's okay.
yeah, okay.
Now I go here and I share once again. I want to optimize for video. Okay. So
Oh, good.
now you can see where we stopped, basically.
Yes.
Let's go ahead. Randomly mix it into what's here.
Hey, we've got your audio now.
How about that?
More over here.
I can take a break. Is it
So
loud
a really
enough?
slight change from left to right, top to bottom.
Yes.
The one below is going to be a little more varied. I'll show you.
Let's have a look at the water part.
I'll show you what I mean. We're going to go from a rather dark condition over here. And I'm going to cut around a few shapes as we do this. Those few shapes will be small, but sort of emulate some of the stones that we're painting today. Even my brush stroke is a little different, isn't it? So graded wash transitions in one direction or another across the table surface. Not the table surface, the paper surface. And then let's drop a little bit of darker color. Oops. I don't need to pick up those reds. Through here, and we'll blend it in. Perhaps I can blend it a little better with this flat brush. And I regard it and ask myself if I want to do anything while there's still a chance. Add any color. I think I'll go just a little deeper. Because it is very wet. And just let this dry. So what have we done? We're doing two kind of little presentations. This one we're creating sort of feeling of light to a mid-tone through here. We're going to do more later when we add the dark pattern on top of this. Here we're creating more depth in this wash, and we're also cutting around a couple shapes which make any sort of graded application more challenging if you're cutting around some shapes. The challenge here is to get a sort of smooth transition. So I'm going to dry these off.
All right, folks, at this point, I'm drying off the painting, as you can tell. This is for speed. When I present these classes or do anything like a demonstration like this, invariably I have to dry off the piece, and it's just kind of boring to listen to this hairdryer and watch it, so I speed it up or edit it out, but I do dry it off.
Gary, just quickly, one of the people watching wanted to know about
So
black.
now we can look at this and
About
I see the comment.
okay,
Ronnie is asking about why some artists say no to black.
right.
Well, probably because their teacher told them to say no. It's really, black is not just black. If you doubt me, pick up lamp black pick up any of the Daniel Smith blacks, get about 6 tubes of black and put them on the paper, dilute them. You'll see that they're all different in nature. They all have a different color aspect. They all have a different grain. So black itself is kind of a generic term. Painting with a dark gray paint, I think is great for us, especially in doing these sorts of practices where we're looking for something. We don't have to think about as much when we're building up the painting with black. You can mix effective blacks, that's for sure, but most of the colors we have on our palette, in essence, are shortcuts. They enable us to reach a color very quickly. Black is no different.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, Doreen would like to know which black you're using.
I use, it's called Neutral Tint. It's made by Sennelier. Okay,
Great.
I'm going to continue forward.
If we look at our image, we can see some suggestions of lights and darks. I'm going to use those to start to build in shadows, places where the leaves break apart, and we start to see shadows within the leaves. And to do that, I'm using a sort of pattern. Notice the kind of stroke that I'm using to do that. That pattern is based on a shape that I see repeated, and that shape, of course, is leaves. And sort of suggested to me by the wash that was left behind. I can see, or I can imagine within this. So we're painting, actually this has a term that you may be familiar with, negative painting. But probably what we're focusing on, what we're trying to do is more of pattern making. And while this is wet, we can deepen some of the shadows. I'm very much focused on the edge of the leaves that are coming down, the sort of clumps or bulk of leaves as they come down from the trees. And this is achieved just by flicking the brush, as you see here. So we're repeating a shape that's basically like that, you know, a little leaf. We're repeating a leaf. This sort of approach is, I feel, very useful in rendering these complex areas where it would be quite easy to get lost in the leaves. And as you build more, you're going to start to feel it coming out, getting more three-dimensional. And then it's up to you how much you develop that. How far do you want to go with that? Since we're painting a background, well, this will serve as our background in our painting today. we probably won't go that far with it. However, we can really develop this sort of pattern making in an unlimited way. And we can push it back still further. Imagine there's a trunk of a tree back here, rising up, another trunk over here. In fact, we do see that in the image to a lesser degree.
Okay. Now what I'm going to do is return to the bottom painting, which is dried, and establish the stones that we see underwater, another type of pattern.
Let's think about this lower one for the moment. Imagine, well, look at our image source. We're looking under the water. We see a couple of things. We see stones that have risen above the water level. We see shadows cast by distant foliage. and we see the pattern of rocks underneath, rocks or stones or mud or things that have reached the bottom of the creek. And we can get a suggestion from things that are here already that are a result of our first wash. So that's what I'm looking for here, is a pattern that's going to help me to create this. I'm using this worn out brush that I have, Sablette, and creating, some dry brush, working on dry paper. And the shapes that are resulting are basically rocks underneath the water surface. These rocks go from a little larger size as they come close to us to a little smaller as they diminish into the shadows. And it's mostly imagined, but there is some inspiration from the image. Again, it's an exercise in pattern making. I'm looking for a shape that's repeated, and once that shape appears, I can, exaggerate it or make it a little less obvious, as though it's underwater. I also feel that the contrast will get a little more as it comes towards us, or that's going to help to create some feeling of depth towards the back. And the stones that are left white, they don't feel quite connected to the piece, but there's definitely a sensation now of the stones as they move underwater. And we look back into the shadows. Everything is kind of melting into the shadows back here, which is fine, absolutely fine. We can add a little bit of dry brush, since we're on the topic of dry brush, to our stones. It does help to have rough paper. So I'm taking a little lighter color. And when I want to make a mark, distinctive rough mark, I'll take out a lot of the liquid and go over like that. It just takes a little bit to get a texture. A little bit of texture. So it's very much of a touch-based technique that you will get used to and perfect with repetition. And this is a great technique for doing stone, because it implies that there's a rough surface here.
Okay, I'm returning to the upper portion. I want to do a couple of things in the upper section to refine it a little bit. We've done a lot of negative painting. I want to create a little more subtlety, and I can do this because using a single color makes it easy to make these sorts of adjustments. So what's another reason that I'm very fond of using single or just a very minimal palette. We don't need to wash my drying technique.
So another way that we can play with this pattern is just by taking a little water, and if we want an area to move more into the shadow or to create a little nuance, play with the gradation a little more, we can return and do this. This is just taking a little water and blending an area that I want to be more in shadow. And a lot of the mark that was made is still there. It's just been softened. Same over here. And we leave the hard edges through the middle there. The sensation is that we're kind of playing with space, playing with depth. Conversely, we can also take a little paint in the dry area now and shape some of the leaves a little better, especially around the edges. In this piece, if we are using, mixtures of greens, the effect will be even stronger. The effect.
Okay. Oops. I want to just pause it there for a minute if I could. Just to point out a couple things. Just easier this way. Okay, sorry. Now,
Hi.
when you see them together, you can see how they might combine to form the painting we're going to try and do today, because we have a very complex pattern in the foliage.
Basketball tonight?
Okay, if you're speaking to
Mhm.
someone, you please put yourself on mute.
Oh, you're going too?
I don't really have enough guys, so we'll just
Whoever's
go.
having the conversation with your family, please put
Let
yourself
me borrow
on
your
mute.
key
Yeah,
for this week.
it's out in the car.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm
In
gonna
this
mute whoever
console?
that
You gonna
is.
find it?
Oh, no, that's not who I want to mute. Trying to find who it is. I guess they've
It's
muted
Donna.
themselves.
It's Donna.
Okay. Donna, can you please mute yourself? Well, hopefully she has. I'm scrolling down trying to find her.
I think
Have we lost Gary? What happened there?
It shows Gary is muted, Nancy.
Okay, I'm scrolling. Ah. Oh, okay. I have him unmuted there.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Okay, good.
Yeah, sorry.
Great.
Anyway, um, I think it's helpful to see these two exercises and realize that now we have a pretty clear approach from a tonal point of view. I think Jody was asking that question in the beginning. Is one of the benefits understanding your subject in terms of lights and darks? Absolutely. And with watercolor, sometimes the bigger challenge is being able to see that in your subject and bring out a rich dark pattern to create the sense of light, just because of the nature of watercolor. So I've got a pretty good understanding here. I'm going to be using a fuller palette in the next painting. Cadmium yellow, Prussian green, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and realize a more complete piece. So let's go ahead and get started with that.
Now I'm looking to create a color version of my picture. This is a stream, a very shallow stream where we notice a lot of energy and activity under the water. I'm starting to place some of the stones. There's a big stone that comes in from the top. I'm drawing them. But I'm using this opportunity to think about almost like stepping stones. How can I create a sort of connection between these stones to make the design a little stronger? So I'm borrowing from what I see and improvising a little bit. Here. One small one back here. Okay. I'll explain that in just a second. So I have some stones coming in from the periphery here, and they're kind of moving, pointing in this direction. Bigger stone here. I like the shape of this stone. We can really do what we want, but some of this I do like what's happening. A bigger stone here with some ledges and things like that. And then foliage coming down, which I'm not going to really sketch out. I'm going to put some areas that I'll focus on when I start to put the color. A little bit from the side too, some reflections. Let me darken this up a little bit so you can see it. So you can see the thought behind the design. Stone coming in, partial stone that's submerged. And some of this is taken from the photograph, some of it is improvised. These angles are important because they show the sort of the plane of the water surface. Because we're not going to be able to show too much of that in the reflections and the water itself. So we count on these lines to show that sort of activity. Now this is a design, but it's not the only possibility. You know, there's limitless possibilities really for designing, and a lot of that's going to be based on taste, you know, what you like to do. This is something I like to do where I kind of direct the eye towards the back. Here's the far shore back here. Some foliage coming out over that, rising towards the back. Some nice planes on this rock that suggest the direction of light. There we go. Reflection, 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 reflection. Vertical, vertical, vertical. And we have a little bit of reflection from our greenery too. This is the basic drawing. And we're going to be doing a lot under the water this time. First time we've painted much of what's going on under the surface, but this is one case where we can have some fun, and we learn a little bit more about, you know, portraying water and some of the properties that water has. Transparent property in this case. Good, so let's start to think about the color plan. Green to brown, basically. Green to brown. It's a green to brown painting. Green kind of echoes everywhere. And as the brown comes down, it gets a little bit yellow through here. An important transition. See, we have a good opportunity for a graded wash through the water. The stones are very bright, and I feel that the camera is flattening them out, so I'm going to add a little more gray to the stones than we see here, bluish gray. So blue, bluish gray in the stones, a lot of this warm sienna to yellow ochre coming down, greenery in the background. That's my color plan. As per usual, I try to keep it quite simple, and although I can see, any human eye can see just limitless variations of color, I'm going to stay with this simple palette. And first of all, I'm going to clean up this dirty palette. Take the dirty palette as a good sign. That means that I've been busy. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So, time to mix some color. And I'm going to use a big mop brush for this effect to paint it in a fluent manner. I have a green here. This is Prussian green that has a lot of blue to it. We can change that by adding a bit of yellow. Cadmium yellow light.
Hold on just a moment. Oh. Well, I apologize. My palette seems to be not there. I don't know where it went. I'm sorry. You won't be able to see me mixing color, but you'll be able to hear me mixing color. Oh gosh.
Notice how I let that dry, and it's very hard to get much out of it. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Anyway, we have a base of colors here. We're going to start from the top and work down. Big brush, starting with this yellow green. And let's just, start to put it on the paper here like this. And then we'll take some of this blue green, mix it in. Just careful about the whites that we're leaving. But a variety of greens. Take some pure blue back here, mix it in as well. That's all. Just a little play of color back here. I don't really want any white back here, so I'm gonna put some stuff over the white. There. Let's do the same with the brown. We're gonna be painting around the stones, but we're gonna be trying to create this nice graded wash. Clean out the brush. And I'm going to start by just painting right from the bottom up, cutting around the stones as best I can. It's a little too light, isn't it? Put some more in there. Big brush helps in keeping everything wet so that we can continue to add color. Well, oops. You might as well take it up into this bigger stone too. We'll leave some whites here, but by and large, we're going to cover it. Okay, continue. Yellow ochre, yellow ochre. I'm going to carry it right into the green here. I know there's going to be bleeding, and I'm pleased about that. Oops, I lost one of my smaller stones. Now let's keep this sort of wet. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. and start to build in burnt sienna. Back to my big brush. I don't know, I'm just more comfortable with it. What can I say? I'm going to leave those for the moment. I know that I can always return and hide those whites should I wish. See, I'm mixing up the burnt sienna, adding a little neutral tint to it, a little water, a little blue also. A little blue. Oops. Better. Yeah, well, it's just, I want to get a graded wash going here. This is the best way to do it. Start where you want it dark and head downhill. Blue. I'm not going to paint reflections yet. I'm just going to cut around the stones. Blue and some of that green as well. We're not trying for a finish here, we're just trying to get that gradient going. Burnt sienna. And since it's still wet, we can keep it moving. And a little bit of yellow ochre. Oops. Still use the flat brush here. Help us out. Helps us out to blend a little bit. Although it's doing a pretty good job by itself. So some wet on wet work and cutting around shapes, which is always a little challenging. Don't worry too much about matching color. Just try to get that transition light to dark, light, dark to light, light to dark. All right, and then we let it dry.
Well, I take out the hair dryer here and start to dry things off. I'll pause it here for a moment and explain. So I've got the painting dried off, and it's surprisingly, the colors are pretty close to how they looked wet. I think one of the things that I do regularly is I put out fresh color before I paint. And I've noticed in my work that the colors tend to remain looking like they did when they were wet in terms of light and dark. So it's easier to judge what you want to do, and you can kind of feel a little more secure that your painting is going to dry the way that you want it to. At this stage, it doesn't look like much, does it? I mean, there's some swirly colors up above, there's some gradations below, but there's a lot of disconnected parts. And so our job going forward is going to be to establish the pattern up above and at the same time connect the bottom dark blue to the upper green. So we'll be using dry technique to do this. And once that is in place, we can finish the lower section. So let's get started. Barbara's asking, what's the size of the sheet? This is roughly 11 by 15, probably closer to 10 by 15, but rather small for me.
Back to our painting. It's had a chance to dry off, and now we're going to be doing some defining of the foliage, of the rocks, of the of the river bottom that we see under the reflections. So we're going to be using some dry technique. I'm staying with my palette, of course, adding, moving to a little smaller brush. I'm going to start in the background using this green, which is Prussian green, a bit of blue, and a little bit of neutral tint. And I'm going to be looking for a pattern here of foliage. And I'm looking at the photograph for clues. And also kind of using my own instinct, as it were. So while some of these are wet, we'll add some darks into it. But in general, we're just doing something that's called negative painting, where we build up the shadow portion of our image. And the strokes that I'm making are kind of responding to the size of the leaves. If you're looking for some suggestions there. What size are the leaves? How big are they? Rather tiny. And how do they flow? How do they come off our out of the shadows and so on? So those are thoughts that are guiding my brush. This way, I don't get too bogged down in details. I can find a pattern and add to that and refine it and keep things lively and fresh. We're starting with the background, and we'll advance to the lower section once we have this to our liking. All those underwashes that we did initially are starting to play a role, giving this greenery a lot of nuance, kind of beauty as the green changes from yellow to blue. That comes out more and more as we refine it. I'm going to add a few more blues back here. While it's still wet. That gives me soft edges going even further back in the foliage. That's one way we can look at this. We're really making the forest and the three-dimensional quality much deeper by doing that. Okay. Let's start to add the stones themselves, mixing up just a light, cool gray, a little bit of blue. The green is very pervasive, so maybe we'll make it a bit more of a warm hue. Let's try some of that here. Some dry brush. Give them a little texture. One thing that helps out a lot is having rough paper. And again, with the texture, I'm sort of being random about it, isolating the white. My light source is coming from the right-hand side and from the front. So, like one of our shadows will fall on the back of the stone. And highlights will stay on the top of the stone. Just something to think about as you're placing these textures. There you go. Pretty good. I want to play a little bit with this stone here as well. My most important lights are back here, so I want to address some of those whites. And I'm going to put a little bit of warmth to them, burnt sienna. And when I do that, I take out the paint of the brush quite a bit. Yellow ochre, burnt sienna, some grays, and blot the brush and come across these white areas. It's something we could leave to the end as well. And then I'm going to, with a little more moisture on the brush, I'm going to come and start to place the shadow side onto this stone. So we'll start with a kind of deep, warm mixture and leaving a few highlights as we bring it down. Then while it's wet, I'm going to bring in this blue and neutral tint mixture. Not too dark. It looks very dark on the palette, but I'm adding some water, so it's going to lighten significantly as it comes down. And I want to take advantage of some of the wet and wet transitions that we can build into our washes. That's always in my thoughts, is how can I use the nature of watercolor to help me and make my expression, whatever it is I'm painting, more interesting. I'll even say more beautiful. And at the bottom of this rock, I'm going to introduce, a little extra dark. As it dries, this will come out more. Right now, it's looking like every other color, but as it dries, it's going to be much stronger, and it's going to make the area above a little more luminous. Some highlights here on the water. Okay. We've done a lot of work in the background, shown some leaves, starting to show the top surfaces and the sides of rocks. Let's start to create some interesting work on the floor of the stream before we move to our strong darks. I'm going to do this with dry brush also. And so I'm imagining, or looking at the photo, can get some hints too on, how these lines extend towards the back and how they maybe define the rocks as they move underwater. Dry brush gives us a lot of control. It might not be what we want in the end. We might choose to soften this at some point, but I think to initiate, something that we're sort of discovering, then we can use dry brush and it's going to be a lot easier. Adding a bit of brown to this. And just emulating the pattern as it comes off of these rocks. We start to feel them going underwater. Imagine this rock goes below the surface. More rocks under the surface about the same size. These are things that I'm thinking about as I place marks. And we need to do some of that up above as well. The rocks themselves will be getting a little smaller. So let's do some smaller things up here. Even though this is a little blurred by the water surface, there's still some darks. Inside of other darks, so nesting some of these darks. And I hear someone asking, how do you know where to put them? Well, the photograph is giving me a little clue as to the general shape of the riverbed, but a lot of it is improvisation. So I pretend like I know what I'm doing. You should too. Even if you're not sure, even if you're guessing, pretend like you've known what to do since the very beginning. What's the worst that can happen? These rocks are on the under the water surface are all kind of covered with silt and other stuff. So now let's return to our rocks above the surface and put some defining marks. We'll use, I think, a strong, dark, small, strong marks. And I'm going to start with this one and start to show some of the, I don't know, cracks or textures within this rock. Just a small, the tip of my brush. And yes, there is some shadow here. That. That looks pretty good, or like close enough. A little more of that over here. Oops. I think it's important at this stage to follow the marks you've already made. For example, there's a little break here. I'm following that. Here's where the water meets. Here's where the water meets and then comes up like this. Blurring some of the edges with dry brush. Okay, good. A little dark. When in doubt, blur it. Using a strong warm along the bottom of these rocks where they kind of meet with the water. Okay, we're getting a little bogged down. Let's continue to refine the rocks. Okay. Now I'm going to start to work again into this larger rock with a few sharp marks using burnt sienna and a little neutral tint. Kind of pull out some rocks that are within rocks. Some finer texture. Deeper shadows. And look at how this is dried. Now we can choose. We can go back and define more, or we can build in more into the wash below here. Let's pause for a second and think about this. Actually, let's add a few more blues while we're here, just to see how these register when they dry. Returning to some of the same marks and adding a little strength. We don't need it everywhere, but here and there it could be good. Okay, I'm adding some before I move away from this, I'm just going to add a few dark touches, kind of responding to this here.
It's nice.
Okay, I'm going to take a little step away from this for a moment and look at it from a distance. We might not need to do much more. Okay. Our painting is dried off, and looking at it, I'm for the most part pleased. I'm just going to do some small adjustments, which include bringing a little burnt sienna or yellow ochre to the top of the rocks, just pushing back that white. White is a little too powerful. Here, so just a little adjustment. Now these stones come out more. I'd like to carry that blue a little lower if possible. So I'm mixing up, I need more ultramarine blue. Okay. So let's put a little bit more here, just a dab, because this is a very light wash. Using as soft a brush as I have. Take a little blue, well, let's just use it here. Mix up some of this ultramarine blue. I feel these stones are just a little jumpy right through here. I want to calm that down if I can. So I'm actually going to start with a little bit of water and push this back. Using a soft brush sort of ensures that it's not going to move out the paint too much or leave too many streaks. And I don't mind if it's, loosens up some of this. That's one reason for doing this, is that it softens some of these edges. Almost there. And we'll be able to compare before and after. Just quieting down the water area, the underwater area. Anything else? I think that should be okay. Let's see how this dries.
Okay.
Wow.
So once the painting dries, that blue tends to settle that whole water area. You remember I worked pretty hard back here to kind of blend things. You saw me returning here again and again. Unfortunately, when you're recording these things, or even if you're seeing it live, there's some glare on the paper and you can't really see what's happening. But I was softening this area quite a bit through here. As a result, all these sharp edges have a chance to advance and come out even more. So if I go back to where it was still wet, it's really hard to tell what's going on here. Even for me, the one who's painting it, I cannot quite see. I'm painting sort of by trust, faith, and a little bit of hope. In any case, I keep these shapes rather bright until the end, and it works out pretty well. Right, these bright stones. So this is an example of taking a complex scene and understanding it first in terms of pattern. What shapes are we repeating? How do those shapes change over the course of
the length of the painting, and how do they, create depth as well? So varying the size of the shape, larger towards the front, smaller towards the back, broken through the middle in the leaves, joined in the shadows. But basically the same shapes are kind of repeated in the stones and in the leaves. What do I want to say? The left, there's a lot of blurry spots, and some would say, it's deviating from the photograph. Absolutely. And I say, huzzah, because this is the artistic part where we start to lose our sense of reality. Oh, and here it is again, sharpness. We lose it, and here it is again, sharpness in the water or the stones. That back and forth creates a sort of dream quality that we find in painting and not so much in photography, unless the photographer is working a lot in the darkroom. Why? Because the lens does not discern. The lens doesn't make choices. We do as artists. We can make those choices and create, I think, a richer experience. So I don't want to get too philosophical, but I do want to take a moment to thank Jody, Nancy, and especially Cam, who introduced me to the Watercolor Society. He's been a stalwart member of my classes since the pandemic. He's given me a lot of support, and it's been wonderful to watch him develop his own vocabulary, his own visual vocabulary. He takes from the artists that he likes, of course, but now he's at a point where his style is very distinct, and you recognize Stuart immediately when you see it on the wall.
Gary, I wonder if you can stop screen sharing and we would maybe see your face. Do you think that's possible?
All right. I
Shall
have,
we give it a try?
I'm using my phone and my desktop, so I'll stop screen sharing. Yes, that's easy to do. I think I have to do something now with my phone.
Well, we'll give you a second there. Oh, there you are. Yay.
So one of me is showing, the other one is going to remain kind of this scarecrow guy. Let me turn on my lights because it's kind of dark here in the van.
So for those that don't know, Gary travels all over the States. And I said to him, well, where do you stay when you're doing all this? He says, in my van.
It's a certain amount of freedom, right? And it lets me meet many of the students that have been in my classes. It's interesting. I gathered a pretty huge following just following the pandemic, and people that I've never met, people in Toronto, people in Saskatchewan, people in Vancouver, people California, Minnesota, all over the place. And I am actually meeting some of those people in the course of my travel. So that's been real positive for me. And when I meet these people, we talk about painting and life, and we eat together, and we can get to know each other more as friends.
Might you ever take that van and come north?
Well, I will be in Ottawa in June.
Ah,
The Ottawa, the Cantat, is it Cantata?
oh, Canada.
Kanata, thank you.
Yeah.
Watercolor Society is having me up there at the end of June.
Oh, well, so if you can send us the info on that. I guess that's a private club that they're doing, but you never know.
You never know. So I will be going north, and I think that'll be the first of many visits.
Well, hopefully you can get to Toronto. Maybe we could arrange something. Perhaps there are some people that are still with us. We still have 60 people. I don't know if anybody would like to unmute and ask a question before Gary has to sign off.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I'm pretty comfortable and kind of locked in for the evening.
That's terrific.
Well,
No,
can
I
I
have a
can I
question.
jump in?
Are we going to get the paintings?
Oh, Manny is asking, could we get a picture of your final painting?
Yeah, that's
You know, that's probably the best. I'll put it up on the screen again. But also, there was a PDF that I sent out to I think Jody and Nancy, and that has a pretty good reproduction. Yes,
Okay,
this
so
painting. Oh,
Jenny is holding it up for everybody to see. It's rendered on a PDF file, as well as a sort of description of how the painting came into being.
right.
good.
So you should have got that in an email, and you can check back and see if you have a copy of that. We could always send it out again.
And here, I'll put it on the screen for you to see. If you want to photograph it or do a screen grab, that's the finished version. And yes, it's the icing on the cake. I think the more substantial part for us as working watercolor artists is the process that led up to it. And it did start with those tonal studies that I showed in the very beginning. Those seemed unrelated, perhaps, as I was introducing them, but now you can see how they play a role in the formation of the concept and the execution of the idea with color.
Beautiful. I just love how you just ease through that gentle background and then it just gently exposes those rocks underwater. I love it. Just beautiful.
That worked really well. I was surprised I could do it. It just showed up after just following your instructions.
That's kind of the fun part of painting is there's a bit of magic involved, right? When you see a master demonstrate, it's sort of, how did that happen? I don't see. I saw the beginning and now I see the end. What happened in between? But when you do it yourself, you realize, oh yes, it can be achieved step by step, and there is a certain magic with watercolor. I think all of us know that. That's why we continue to paint with the
Yes.
media that happens as a result of the media. It's we almost are better off not to interfere with what's happening on the paper and let it move, let it pocket, let it ripple the paper, and then let it dry, and that magic comes out as an ingredient to the success of the painting.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Agreed.
So it's one thing to watch you, Gary, but it's another thing to actually let us into your thinking on this. It's fascinating. It's very interesting how that emerges. And I guess on behalf of the Toronto Watercolor Society, I'd like to thank you very much for a really great presentation tonight. I think it was enjoyed by everyone.
Oh, thank you, Cam. I appreciate that.
You've got many compliments in the chat, Gary.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. And as Cam said in the beginning, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube. If you want to see more of this, it's all there. I do a very similar approach where I'm talking as I'm painting and trying to describe what's happening in my approach. And YouTube, I think, is a great resource for us as students who want to know more about the media, who want to see different approaches, understand what's happening technically as well as spiritually in the painting. YouTube is a great resource for that. And I think of all the technical things that came out of the computer, that's the number one.
What's the name of this painting? I forget if it had one on the handout. On the
I call it Over Water, Underwater.
Oh, okay. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And I have a question. When I was first looked at your website, maybe a week or two ago, that painting, The Dog Walker, was available. Now it's sold. I love that painting.
Oh, well, yeah,
The woman,
that was sold to a friend of mine who owns a couple of what are they? There is one in the painting, and they're white. They're terriers.
oh, oh, I know what that is. A
Jack
Westie,
Russell?
a
Misty?
Westie.
Westie,
Oh,
Yes,
Westy.
a
and
Westie.
yeah, and I'm glad you commented on that, Jody, because that was a very fun part of my research, was looking at the different breeds and how they appear, how they're colored, how they interact. They all have something unique about them, and the
I
Westies
I
have
had a
big
West.
personalities.
Boy, that painting, honestly, it looks like you were sitting on the sidewalk and painted them as they were walking down the street. It looks so spontaneous and authentic.
There's a couple on YouTube that I've done of a similar subject. One is the background music is Scott Joplin, The Maple Rag,
Yes.
and that was done on a rainy day, walking a dog walker on a rainy day. And you see them all over Boston. It's
I'm
so
sure.
entertaining to see this person with 12 or 14 dogs just pulling at every angle. And yet they manage to move along and enjoy their walk and not interfere with other people.
Yeah, they do. Do you
I,
take photos when you're, how do
Oh,
you,
of course,
yeah,
yes.
so you, a lot of those are, well, keep painting them because I'm going to buy one of those one of these days. They're just so charming.
Tell me what kind of dog you have.
Oh, we've got a Labradoodle, Henry, a big brown one, and then we have a little Shih Tzu Bichon. So
Oh,
Mutt and Jeff.
yeah, yeah. They kind of look like Mutt and Jeff together.
Yeah, yeah.
Jody, Jody,
Yes,
it's
yes.
Kathy. I had a Westie.
Oh,
Her name was Posey, and she was supposed to be a show dog for Penny Bell Scorer, who was the top show dog
oh my.
breeder in Canada. And then she sold a male Westie to friends of Lindsay, our daughter, and Lindsay babysat that dog a lot to the point that that dog preferred her to the owner. But
That's what happened.
that dog had such personality. It was like a person.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
maybe they
Whenever you
do.
talked, it would do this.
Yep.
Yes.
And it was almost agreeing with you. But my Westie that I got from Penny Bell was supposed to be a show dog, but she was too timid to show. It was a
Oh yeah.
female, and the
Yeah.
male is much different than the female that we were taking care of.
Well, we can all look at Gary's
Yes.
pictures and get
Yes, I'd love to see
get a
it.
good idea.
Oh, they're so much fun. And you have such a wide variety of subject matter. But I really appreciate those little, you make those little black and white values studies more fun to me than, doing them in pencil.
Mm.
It's kind of laborious doing them in pencil, but it was kind of fun to see you do it in watercolor.
And it's a great segue, Jody, to
Yeah.
the media of watercolor. When you work with a single color, you can think more about edges, more about light and dark, more about shapes. You're not preoccupied with the hue. Is this the right
Yes.
hue?
Yes. That's so true.
So I think it becomes a more enjoyable, and that joy translates into painting. People feel it right away.
And you have so many black and white paintings on your website. So
That's been my trend.
are they the paintings by unto themselves? A lot of them? Yes. Okay.
So I'm just going to
Yes.
stop the recording before we
Okay.
keep going, and then
Yeah.
maybe we can give Cam the last word. I'm just going to check that recording there, though.